I'm here with Captain Stringer, and I'm here with Lieutenant Jeremiah McNeish, and we're gonna have some good talk today. One of the topics that we wanted to bring up was boundaries. The last time that we did this, um, there's a recording device that's actually recording the things that we say, and I shit the bed, in other words, and wasn't paying attention to the batteries failed. So we're going to try to do this again. And I wanted to bring this up and give these two gentlemen room to talk about it because personally, I feel like this is like the glue that holds the leadership of from our line officers. This is this is one of the glues that holds everything that we do together, right? Because we can't go down every road, and we have to have. I don't want to say you have to put walls up, but you just might, and you need to have the ability to do that. And sometimes, you know, well, not even sometimes, like when if this is a skill, having boundaries is a skill because you're going to have to adjust it all the time. So at um, when you're bad at creating boundaries, when you need to like make an adjustment to it, or when something happens, you know it being you know being good at the skill, you'll be able to see it coming and be able to make adjustments on the fly. It won't affect your people or what you're doing as much. But if you're of course, when you first start doing this, of course, it's going to be, it's going to be weird. You're going to get pushback. Um, they're not going to like it because most of the time, because they're losing something. Most of the time, it's like they're either losing the buddy that they had, or at least they'll feel this way. You can create boundaries without really making a whole lot of changes in the things that you say, in the things that you do. Most of it's all going to be internal. Um, so I don't know. What do you think? Jerry, start us off.
All right. So last time we had this conversation, I think some of the talk got kind of shifted to prior to having boundaries. I think you need to have clear expectations. As the company officer, I think it's our job to set those expectations to the people that you lead, so that way they know, okay, here's what my lieutenant will and will not accept, not only around the station but on calls, and your personality around the station. Like, I think as long as you are clear with what you expect of them, the boundaries are a little easier to identify, because they'll know, hey, I know that he does not like us to complain when we have to go pick up grandma off the ground. Like, we've had that conversation, like, this is our job, this is what we're going to do. Yeah, I don't like being up at 1 o'clock in the morning doing it, but if that was your grandma, it's what we're going to do.
Right.
So, and then I think, once you're clear on your expectations of what you expect, it's a little easier to identify where the boundaries are. So that's my thoughts on it.
Chris?
Absolutely. You, in my opinion, are doing a disservice to your people if you're not coming in and telling them what your expectations are. And there's two schools of thought on this. There's the school of thought that you come in on day one and you're giving your people your expectations, what you want, what you don't want to see. And then there's also the other philosophy developed by Brunacini, said that you would come in and you watch your people. If you're a brand new officer, you're coming in and you're kind of standing back and watching for a couple shifts, because maybe you don't need to you have expectations, but you're not telling them to do certain things if they're already doing things really, really well. So watching what they're doing well, and then saying, hey, then right up front when you have that expectations meeting, hey, I'm seeing that you guys are getting out every shift, you're checking the truck off, you're doing multiple things, and you can give them like an attaboy for that. And then from these are the rest of my expectations, things that I think that we could adjust a little bit better. But you can't get upset with people for not doing what you want and or abiding by those boundaries if you don't have like a simple conversation.
It's just not always implied.
Yes. I give a written set of expectations to people, whoever my crew is, so they know exactly what I want, what I don't want. Our battalion chief, Luke Smith, he's given everybody, which is a phenomenal set of expectations and ultimately like our battalion ethos on what our philosophy is. And
I've only gotten that like maybe 2 times in my career, a written, and I'll go down that road with you 100%. A written, list of, and it wasn't like you will do this, you will do that, you will do this. It was like this is what these are the traits that I expect you to exemplify, and it's almost like do your job, of course, is the overlying tone.
Yeah.
But have integrity and just like it's not implied. It isn't.
And when you and I worked together at 14, I was a brand new lieutenant, and this is something that we would talk about, but I didn't have it in a written form.
Right.
And then I actually didn't realize the importance of that until I went up to NFA and I talked to a chief from Charlotte, and he said, you really are doing a disservice to your people if you're not providing it in written form, because let's say you have a conversation with them and your hour-long expectations meeting, they may only remember 15% of that conversation.
Right.
So they have to have something to be able to reference back to, say, okay, well, I need to remember this, I need to remember that, so that they can understand and they can ultimately give you what you want and your need, so for each and every shift. I would say for me, setting those boundaries and or clarifying your expectations, the most important thing is not just telling people what you want, but telling them the importance of why.
Right.
Yeah.
So, hey, this is why we're doing it. This is why that we're not complaining, because it can bring down crew morale. This is the importance of, when we go and pick up grandma off the floor at 3 a.m. Right. This is why, because we are that citizen's last hope, and they are looking to us to be able to ultimately solve their problem.
Sure.
And just put yourself in their shoes. If it's your mom, your grandmother, and my expectations have always been, I would say they're constantly revolving, to where like I have a certain core set of expectations, but there's certain things that you're constantly adding, subtracting, because it might change for your crew. I would say like when I first got to 5, you're in a little bit of culture shock, because they're like on autopilot. When I came in and to like right away, they were already, they were washing the trucks, cooking breakfast, getting out doing training, and it's just, you're taken back because it's like you're just trying to get in there and like it's like culture shock overload when you first get there. There's a lot going on at once,
Right.
And so I was like, right now I'm just trying to like catch up,
Right.
and learn the way they do things.
Right.
So,
and to me, that's to your credit to show up to a crew that already works well together, already knows, has a plan A, right? And it's for you to be able to say, be humble enough to say, like, bring me up to speed, not like, I like how you do it, but I want you to do it this way because of, you see these things right here. I'm gonna like, these are my bugles. So it's to your credit to be able to do that, and why mess it up if it's a good thing?
and
Right.
and not Right, and I would say like my expectations I feel like I have them pretty dialed in now, and they mirror a lot of what I got when I worked with Chief Steen. And I had a great conversation with him and with Jason Bear about this.
Right.
And Steen categorized his 4 expectations into 4 different categories. He said, I expect my people to be good in 4 different areas. I expect us to be good administratively.
Right.
It's like no one wants to hear that, but you still got to make sure our reports get done, that we're doing the things we need to do to get us out of trouble. We're make sure that we're good logistically, that we have to have functioning equipment.
Right.
We have to make sure that our trucks are operational to be able to get us to the call and do the things that we need to do.
Mm.
We all need to be good in a leadership realm. Just because someone has 2 bugles doesn't mean that they're the only leader in the station. There's a great book out called Jump Seat Leadership, that we're all leaders. And so everybody can come in and they can inspire somebody. And then also, like where the rubber meets the road, is I expect us all to be good operationally. And from then, like from those 4 categories, then you can go down to, and try to get a little bit more specific on what your expectations are.
Right.
And then from there, setting your boundaries.
So, Jerry, I want to ask you something. But I'll ask both of you. I apologize.
Yes.
How would you have that conversation? Especially you, because you're a swing lieutenant right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, you're in one of the most precarious positions to set boundaries, because and would you even use the word boundaries? Because one, no one wants to hear that word, especially from a lieutenant that I would see only on occasion.
Yeah.
And 2, people don't like, because as soon as you say that word, boundary, right, they're gonna see a wall.
Yeah.
And especially when they're used to seeing walls, that's going to be like, oh, you're just put a wall up in front of me, in between us, because and insert whatever like mental picture that they're having. The spectrum is probably huge, right? How do you approach that without using the term boundary? Like, how would you have that conversation with a crew?
Yeah, so I do have a unique perspective. I've had the opportunity to work at stations that I have never worked at before, and now I'm there as the company officer. Mm-hmm. I've worked with crews that I've never worked with before, and I'm now expected to come lead them. So what I have done is, when I get to a new station with a new crew, it hasn't happened as much recently because I've been around to pretty much all the stations at this point, but I would just ask them, hey, if we catch a fire first due, what is your plan? Do you have a plan? Have you guys worked something out? And if you do, tell me what that is. And if it's close to in line with what I think is a good plan, then I'll fall in line with what your plan is. Awesome. I'm not coming in as a substitute teacher for the day to change the way you guys do things.
Right.
If you don't have a plan and you guys haven't discussed that, then we'll come up with a plan. Hey, if we're first due, here's what we're going to do. Here's the line we're going to pull. But I think
I like that. You're learning what
because
their
I am
routine,
there,
their plan
like
is.
you said, for the day.
Right.
And then, and I explained to him, like, here, I want you guys' input on things, on calls. I'm not here to say that I have all the answers. You guys have worked together before. If you have input on a decision that needs to be made, I'd love to hear it. Ultimately, it's going to be my decision to make, the final decision. And if it ends up being a good decision, then we'll celebrate together. If it's a bad decision, then I'll take the fall as the officer.
Right.
But we're going to make those decisions together. And so that's kind of the way I've handled it. And, also I'm coming in to somebody else's station who's off for the day. I'm filling in another officer spot. And I'm not here to tell those guys that what their officer has told them to do is wrong.
Right.
I don't want to do that.
That's definitely not going to go over.
Yeah,
very well.
so I kind of approach it with an open mind
Yeah.
to the stations that I float around to, and it seemed to work pretty well so far.
Humble is probably the best approach.
Yeah,
Definitely the overarching approach to this conversation is, what can I do for you, right?
sure.
Yeah, I like that.
I respect that you're going in and you're ultimately not trying to change anything, but we need to have a plan. But
We need to
if
be
you already
having-
have a great plan, then let me learn that plan
Yeah.
just so we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Because I've been a part of crews to where earlier in my career where you show up to stuff and there is no plan.
Right.
And then you're just trying to figure it out.
The plan is there's no plan.
The plan is no plan, and then you're just trying to.
And the time that you show up to that call is not the time to come up with a plan. Like, we need to have a plan before
Yeah.
that call comes out, ultimately.
Right.
So,
Everybody panic.
Yeah.
That panic is the plan.
yeah.
I think, going back to boundaries, if you have great expectations, your boundaries are more implicit. They're just understood. And I will express to the people that I work with, don't put me in a position to be the bad guy. Like, I am here to ultimately take care of you guys, to make sure that we all succeed, that we all have fun, because this is a great job.
Right.
But if you're not going to do what I need you to do, what the department needs you to do, then you're going to make me be the boss, and I don't want to have to be the bad guy. So just take care of what we need to do, what those expectations are, and then we're all going to have a great shift. I would say everybody that I work with, especially now at Station 2 in the West Battalion, everybody understands that, and you're coming in, like I talked about before, at Station 5, everybody comes in and they just ultimately, they know what I want and what Chief Smith wants, and they take care of it. And
You had just said something, and maybe we can kind of take it in that direction too. The last time we did this, we talked about the three of us. The last time we did this, we talked about roles, right? And to me, the roles conversation and boundaries is the same conversation, just kind of two avenues going to the same town. When I first got to 11, because the three of us, there's 3 lieutenants there on B shift now. The 3 of us sat the whole crew down at the dinner table on day 1, and over about an hour and a half, we essentially explained what our roles are, explained what we expect from someone, and to you guys' credit, I now know that I need to put this on paper, because I totally agree with that concept. But we did this. Myself and Brian and Vinny sat the whole crew down and explained what we expect, and we also defined what our role is. So I'm a direct representative of headquarters. Anyone who is an officer, you are a direct representative of headquarters, and that doesn't need to be painted in a negative light. But it helps when you say that. It helps kind of collectively bring us all together. We're all on the same team, and so it's like saying that without saying it, right? My role is to be the leader, but my role is also to be an administrator. To be the person who inspires the crew, to be a subject matter expert, not on everything, but at least on how the station life is supposed to go, and discipline. That is one of my jobs. And you had said to have the conversation of, or to at least say, I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't mind, and maybe that's not the right way to say it, that I don't mind being the bad guy, but they need to see that that's just part of the role that I play. It's built into the system, right? Yeah. And that it's not, it's not even being a bad guy, right? because and you're right, they're going to take it as, you're just doing this to me. But I think that if we explain to them from the very onset that one of my jobs is to approach you when things go sideways and when policy's not followed, because that's essentially what we're doing. We're going to have to go down a discipline road when policy isn't broken. If it's not in policy, then it's just a conversation. But it covers almost everything that's going to happen, right? At least on calls or whatnot. But I would avoid having the saying, don't make me be the bad guy, because it's just the role that we're in. Like, you're gonna have to, and if you do something, just know that I'm coming to you. It's not personal. Jared said the last time, it's business, baby. You put me in the position to do this.
Yeah.
So own it, and you can do it being positive, and you can do it without beating them over their head and asking them why they were a retard. Like, why did you do that? What's the matter?
A good example of this. Chief Herring, he would come in.
I miss Uncle Bobby.
So, and this is when he was more Uncle Bobby at Station 14, not when he was earlier in his career as the Terminator. He was. But I will say that he was good at establishing those boundaries. He would come in and he would shoot the shit with you about hunting, whatever. Yeah. But if ultimately, and I'm tell you, as a brand new lieutenant, I have that conversation with him in the morning where he's going on and on and on about fishing, and we're talking about all these different things. And then an hour later, I dropped the ball on something that I did not do, and I think we had all went out as a battalion the week before, and we were all having a beer and just shooting the shit with him. But the conversation changes when I go into his office an hour later and I didn't take care of what I needed to take care of. And he ultimately had to be the bad guy and, let me know that I wasn't doing what I needed to do.
Right.
And the best thing with him was, I owned up to it and just said, I apologize. I dropped the ball on this and it won't happen again.
It's crazy how well that works.
Yeah, but the boundaries were set, and I didn't. But I knew that I didn't try to take advantage of that. We were just friendly an hour ago. Why are you coming at me like this? I didn't do my job.
Yeah.
Right.
I screwed up. It won't happen again.
Right. And obviously, those conversations are easier to have when you already have the written expectations. It's very clear to everyone what the expectation is.
Right.
So when you don't meet that, it's easier to have that conversation. Like, hey, man, we had this. I wrote down a list of things.
Right.
You clearly did not follow this one.
Shall we revisit this?
Yeah.
And I guess having it, it's tape this thing to the inside of your locker if you have to.
Right.
If it's a new day every shift, there you go. That way you can, and it would never get to that point.
Right.
I mean, of course, we're being humorous about it, but
I think that goes both ways on the leadership, on the rank structure. When we were at Station 5, when I was an engineer, and we had a rookie. All the engineers would sit down with the rookie and give them a list, an actual paper that said, here's what our expectations are of you at Station 5. If you aren't sure what to be doing, here's a list of things that you can be doing,
Right.
So it was very clear to them when they were not doing what was asked, hey, where's that list we gave you?
Right.
Let's look at it, because, clearly you're not doing the things that you should be doing, and here's how we explained it to you. Mm-hmm. And then, as officers, to our engineers, I think that's a good conversation to have, and as well as from our battalion chiefs to us as company officers. Mm-hmm. I think one of the first shifts as a swing lieutenant in the Central Battalion, I sat down with my battalion chief and said, hey, chief, as a new lieutenant, I'm used to what we did at Station 5. I realize that Station 5 is its own kind of experience. Mm. So I would like to hear what your expectations are of me as your new lieutenant.
Right.
because we were given a lot of autonomy at Station 5 to kind of do what we needed to do. There wasn't a whole lot of, we kind of had a long leash to say it a little bit. I realized that some battalion chiefs aren't as comfortable with that. And if we go to a fire and I'm, new to his battalion, he may not be used to the long leash that I thought I had. So those are just good conversations to have. So everyone's on the same page.
Right. So if let's talk about a lieutenant at a station, or even a captain, but it's probably mostly a lieutenant, would be a lieutenant issue. A new lieutenant, like newly promoted, gets moved to a well-established crew, right? How would they have that conversation, you guys' opinion? Because to me, I don't want to say that we're bad at this idea. I don't want to throw stones into the past, because to me, that is unhelpful, but to not realize what the path that we have taken to get here, to ignore that, we could end up going right down that path again if we don't know what it looks like.
Are you saying that someone gets moved in temporarily, or they're getting moved in?
No, because I think what I'm trying to point this conversation to is we now have a bid system.
Yes.
Right? And so the deck is going to get shuffled a lot more than it's ever been shuffled in the past. And in even our recent past, to go from the long time ago until our recent past, we were all pretty much in the same place all the time. You rarely left battalions, you rarely left your shift, and right now the deck's really getting shuffled. And so let's talk about, and we're going to have so many people who are now going to get promoted. We're going to have a bunch of new leaders, and the things that we say today could potentially, help any of those people who come into a well-established crew. So imagine, and we'll use Station 5. We'll use 5C as the example. This is going to make this conversation maybe a little difficult, but let's say Wayne gets promoted to captain, right? And Wayne's position is vacant. Okay. They're going to promote a lieutenant into that position, right? From, we'll say, the North Battalion. How would a North Battalion lieutenant, not that the culture is different or bad, but they're, the pace at 5, like you said, the leash is different from, so they land there. How would they have that conversation with the crew? Because as the leader, doesn't matter what the dynamic of the crew is, you still have to have that conversation, even when it's really uncomfortable. Because I'm sorry, you took the lieutenant's test, and you now are getting paid by the county to be the leader, but now you are the leader of like a really, really good, aggressive pack of wolves. You still need to stand out. How would they have that conversation?
I'll just,
because
I would say this: Station 5, you're in the fortunate situation that you have other officers there. So let's say that a new lieutenant is coming in there. You have someone such as Tyler Lee, very strong lieutenant, well-established leader. In my opinion, you can come in and you can immediately say, hey, I'm the new lieutenant here. Can you get me up to speed on crew expectations? You're coming in with that learning, growth mindset. Tell me what I can do to succeed and ultimately fit in with this crew.
Right.
And so I'm not coming in and disrupting. Right now, I don't want to come in and disrupt your guys' routine. I want to come in and ultimately just be a cog in the wheel, because that is what you are there. Compared to, let's say, you're a brand new lieutenant. Let's say you're going to Station 3. You are it. You are the leader of that crew. So then that is a very different conversation, because you're coming in day one. So, and in that situation, I would come in and you're ultimately trying to get with your engineer, who might be your senior man. Let's say maybe it's like a Roger Senior. Or when I first got to 5, I was there was several new lieutenants there. You know, Josh Brannon had just started there. And so I got with Vroman. The other person I got was with Tim Clark. I got with Jerry. You get with certain people there that had been there a while,
Right.
and you're just trying to learn. But when I first got to Station 2, I got with Mark Reddish he's been an engineer at Station 2 for a long time.
Right.
Hey, tell me about how things work in the West.
Right.
How things work at Station 2. And right now you're just trying to learn about the crew a little bit while you're still trying to dial in your routine and your expectations. So
Right.
I think that it all depends where you go. Like I said, at 5, you're in a good situation if you're going and there's other company officers there. Now let's say that you go to another station and there's an officer that is not very strong, and then you're coming in and now you have a routine that is not to where we're going to be sitting in the recliner all day long doing nothing.
It's different. And
You're
more
coming
active,
in and you're a brand new lieutenant. You're
Yeah.
pretty motivated and you're excited.
which is equally as hard of a conversation to have.
So
or
how
a
do you
role to be
get
in.
that crew on board? It's kind of the other
Right.
way from 5.
Right.
How, Jerry, you're a brand new lieutenant and you're coming in to station, like another station.
Yep.
And that crew is not as motivated as a previous crew you've worked with, and that's going to be your permanent home. Then how do you get them on board?
Yeah. So I haven't had that opportunity necessarily yet because I haven't had a permanent home as a lieutenant.
I
which
like
is-
that you put that as an opportunity.
Yeah. So I am looking forward to that
Yeah.
when that time comes. But I think maybe the best approach in that is come from a humble place and give them the opportunity to show you what it is that their station life and their current routine is. Like, you're not coming in day one guns a-blazing. Obviously, I don't think that's the right approach. But, you know, maybe start with, hey, you know, I'm new to this zone. Let's go out and do some territory training. Show me what it is that you guys have already identified as some potential problems in the zone. Like, if we get a call to this certain location, have you guys already identified of water supply problems, or is this a high target for you guys?
Right.
You know, show me. And then I think by starting that way, maybe that turns into, you know, a month later, all right, let's go to this place and let's talk some tactics at this particular location.
Right.
You know, stuff like that. I think a slow approach is probably the better one, especially at the stations where you have the senior guys who are used to doing it a certain way for so long. I think that will show them that you're not coming in to try to like disrupt what they've been doing.
Right.
And like Kat mentioned, you know, coming into Station 5, you have almost somebody at every rank at that station is a leader. They are leading themselves.
Someone is the go-to
Yeah.
guy. Yeah.
And so as an officer there, you are blessed with having people that you don't necessarily have to motivate. You know, they're motivated on their own. So it kind of makes that part of our job a little easier.
It could even be the firefighter. Like
'Cause I'm a
it could,
huge
like,
advocate
could.
Yeah.
for mentorship.
Yeah.
And you have other mentors there,
Absolutely.
other officers, even other engineers that could help get you up to speed on, you know, some facets of that apparatus that you're not as familiar with, some tactics specific for that zone,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Chris, you had said something. You had put it in a way that I like. You had said that essentially what you were saying is you don't assume, right? Just go and find the senior man, or find, like Jerry said, find the go-to guy and ask him, what are we doing? But it's also like, you can't be scared to have that conversation. It's your job too, right? And as like difficult or as, because not everyone is like I guess the word I'm looking for is, not everyone is an extrovert to where like, hey man, what are you doing? So
Right.
you're gonna have to step out of your comfort zone to do this, and I think that you have a unique perspective from Five because you were that guy, right? And I really admire that your initial approach wasn't like, hey, these are just my expectations. From that's not how you started the conversation. So you went to the senior man and said, hey, tell what do you need from me, essentially, and the other, let them kind of give them some buy-in as well.
And they were already. Those guys were already training a lot.
Right.
They already
Yeah.
had their routine of what they were doing.
It's important to recognize
Yes.
that they have that, and not that I'm bringing something to the table, and we're just going to do this, or to me, it's being able to step back and be humble about who you actually are and what you bring to the table, and because we can learn from every person out there, even the firefighters got something to bring to the table.
Yeah.
But yeah, I admire that because you're the line officer, right? We're all officers. We're all responsible for these people, but we're not the king or anything like that. It's they bring something to the table. I'm the paperwork, right? Yeah, I don't have to be the subject matter expert on everything. It'd be nice, but if you're the person who shows up and you're the most informed person, either you're not doing much at all or you're completely psychotic, because you can't wear all those hats at the same time.
And I think it's also important that you have a conversation with your supervisor, clarifying that supervisor should have expectations for you. Chief Smith had a list of expectations for me when we had a great conversation when I was interested in going to Station 2 on what ultimately my role would be, what his expectations of me would be, and then day one we have that expectations meeting. But then I ask him, well, I want to know what can I do to help you? Some things that aren't necessarily written down. What can I do to fit into the battalion?
Right.
What can I ultimately? How can I come in and help as a new officer?
Right.
And because really, if they had a plan for everything, like when I first got there, they were doing quarterly line of duty death reviews, and we were doing quarterly training. We were training on different facets of the job, every Saturday. We had different routines where we were doing building walkthroughs. The good thing there is that everybody, though you have your set officers, everybody there in the West Battalion has a say-so. So if you have an idea of something that you want to do, you ultimately can go and pitch it. And any of the officers there, you have, Lieutenant Freeland and you have Millsaps, all those guys are, I would say that they're not on their high horse to where they're not going to listen to any good ideas that their people have.
Right.
They'll ultimately entertain that and take that to heart and say, you know what, let's go do that. Let's try it.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. You never
Yeah.
know. All right.
I like that.
So,
Well, let's venture down that hopefully not so dangerous path. Is from the officer's perspective.
Yeah.
Captain, lieutenant. Everyone is being led by somebody. But one thing I want to I guess let's start there. If you look at almost all of the stations, except for the ones that have battalion chiefs in them, if you have a station where you have 2 lieutenants or even lieutenants and a captain, no one's leading them. Figure it out, right? The station that has a captain and an OBC, no one's leading that day at that station except that captain. That's you or it, right? And so I think it's sometimes, and I kind of look at all these things a little holistically. Like, and I'll use myself as an example. I'm at a station where there's 3 lieutenants, right? There's myself, there's Lieutenant Sumner, and Lieutenant Garcia. When it comes to the day-to-day of that station, no one's leading us. It's our show, right? And I think it's beneficial to look at the not the finality of that, but the weight of it, right? And to realize that it's if you for instance, and if you can do that, anyone can do this. If you're an officer in any department, right? If you are the highest ranking or the equal ranking officer, walk through the door and spend the whole day, not necessarily in silence, but watch what happens throughout that day, because it is a direct reflection of your leadership. It's a direct reflection of you.
Yeah.
And now, granted, people have bad days and things like that. So, but the day-to-day goings of the station is, because no one is holding your hand going down that road, And if you see something that you don't like, guess who it's up to? It's up to you, or it's up to me. Like with my crew, with our crew, if the guys aren't training enough, it's my responsibility. It's not the department's responsibility. If no one's eating together, which there's no policy for that, but maybe there should be, right? Because that comes down to mental health, right? So if that's the case, that's a leadership issue. Sorry, I got off on a tangent there for a second, but I felt like that was, we had a good segue into that actual topic. Is anything?
I get to kind of experience that a little bit because me going into other stations that are led by other officers, I'm just there for the day. When I show up, the crew does what the crew does, and that is what they have been, I shouldn't say allowed to do, but they have their routines. Some are different than others when I go to different stations, but I've been able to observe exactly what you're saying, like the attitudes at the station, the motivation at the station, and I've picked up on things that I've just thought into my head. Okay, when I do have the chance to have my own station, I want to think about when I have a substitute teacher come into my station, what are they going to observe of my crew? I
what
want
are the other eyes?
What are the other eyes going to see when I have somebody come in to fill my shoes?
Wow, yeah.
When they leave that day, are they going to walk away from that station thinking, man, those guys are doing it. They're
Right.
doing it right. Or are they going to walk away from that station thinking, man, those guys aren't being led by anybody. Like, nobody was motivated, I get to see it from the other side of it now. And I think I've tried to make it a point to pick up on that stuff. So when I do have an opportunity to have my own station, those are the things that I'm going to kind of I want to drive my leadership style. So.
I think we
That's
just
great.
I think we just ventured into something called reputation.
That'd be even if you're a new hire, somebody
Yeah.
that has been your new hire, and they start floating out, and then they go to another station.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Lieutenant McNeish's new hire.
Yeah.
That's a direct
Jerry's-
reflection
yeah.
on that person. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's very well put, and it's a good perspective on it.
Yeah.
So
This swinging thing that I've been doing, I think has not been ideal. I don't know that it's an ideal thing for brand new company officers, but it has given me the opportunity to see things a little bit differently. And I've tried to keep an open mind and pick up on the things that I can while I've been doing it.
Right.
And that's been one of them.
Right. The reputation, it's not carved in granite, right? And I think it's important to say that. But depending on what you do, it can be almost an act of Congress to change. Especially if you spent a long time being a certain way, and I'm not excusing myself from this by any stretch of the imagination, because I like us all, we all have a reputation. It just depends on on if it's good or it's bad, because I think we'll naturally be harder on ourselves than other people will be. So I'll probably have a more negative vision of what I think that my reputation is. But yeah, it will follow you, and it will follow your people. So it's important as the officer to know that how you are with your crew, and they're a version of you, whether you like it or not. You are having an impact on their reputation.
Yeah.
So being strong and leading them, I don't want to say correctly, but example is like leading by example is one of the, to me, and this is just my personal opinion, to me that's one of the easiest and the best tactics, because if they see you doing it, they're going to want to do it. You're making it okay. Because I have a feeling that a lot of our firefighters and even engineers, maybe even some of our other line officers, are like, there's things they want to do, but you kind of don't want to be the bad guy, right? Drag everyone out into the just go do it, because most of us are like, I kind of wish I had something to do today, and get excited when somebody's like, let's go through ladders. Oh yeah, heck yeah.
Now, I will say a good example, when I got assigned to Station 14, and I am a brand new lieutenant, and there's 2 other lieutenants there, and so I'm going in to ride on Engine 14, and the other 2 lieutenants, and I've been on that truck, you're just in survival mode. Like when you're a lieutenant on Rescue 14, Rescue 41, and you're running 10 or 15 calls a day, really you're just trying to keep your head afloat with the reports, and and try to get some rest during the day, because you're just getting completely hammered.
God, there's no room for anything else there.
A lot of times there's not. Yeah. But when I was the brand new officer there, and I was coming in on Engine 14, and I could tell that there wasn't necessarily a set direction and or like plan for training. I just had a candid conversation with the other company officers there, and I said, hey, I'm not trying to change the way we do things, but I would like to come in and establish some training that we do every day. I understand that at times you guys might have to leave for calls, and or you might not always be here, but I would like to take it upon myself to drive the plan for the day. I would like your input. Let's try to develop this together.
Right.
But I'm not trying to come in, and I don't want to change everything, but could we just try to do some type of training, organized training every shift?
Right.
And I would say that the company officer there at the time, they both appreciated, just that me asking their opinion, because then I started saying, well, they were like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We just hadn't thought of that before. We hadn't had a conversation of that because we'd just been so busy. And then, well, what would be some stuff that you would want to train on? And a lot of times, if you start asking people their opinion, like, what are some things that you don't feel strong on that you want to feel weak in? Or that you feel weak in that you want to feel strong in and that you want to work on? Then a lot of times when you get people involved in the process. So, I mean, you were there, so you're the senior person there when I'm coming in day one. Yeah. So everybody has their routine, and you were driving the training as the engineer there. But you were having to float in and out off that truck too sometimes to go ride out of position out at Station 8. So
it was it's
a difficult situation.
I remember that, and I remember when you first got there, and I'll admit this to you, that that was my first assignment, right? And when my first assignment was Engine 14, and I was assigned under Mike Hires, probably the best fire officer as far as like crew dynamic wise, holding people together.
Big Mike was great.
Fantastic guy. May he rest in peace. I'd love to have 3 or 4 of them back. I really would. But to his credit, he let me do whatever I want to do, and like I didn't necessarily see like a vacuum, but there kind of was. There was so much room for training, and like so I led, from after my probationary year, within the first 2 years, I was it, and so I was the whatever training I wanted to do. We just did it. We did it every shift, and no one really stood in my way. And so to have another officer, or to have an officer come in, it was challenging for me as an engineer to have someone who's better at this than me to come in and say, like let's do things. And you didn't come in and say, the way that I'm doing it is wrong. You were bringing more to the table, and I appreciate it. And it took a little while for me to really know the gravity of what it was. Just because I'm flawed like everyone else. Like I had to take myself down a few rungs and realize, that you had a lot to offer. So I had to learn. I had to learn that as well, and it was fantastic. And you also, to your credit, led by example. And because Facebook and the world is on the internet right now, and everyone is an internet psychologist, but one of the facts that are out there that you can't dispute is 75% of communication is nonverbal. So we can, if you take the conversation about expectations and the conversation about, or even the conversations about training or any of these other, that's the verbal part of it. That's 25% of this. 75% of the expectations and the boundaries is nonverbal, because it doesn't have to come out of your mouth. It means you have to do it, and you have to exemplify it. And maybe just saying that and putting that out there, could help benefit someone to who has a very well written thing of expectations and can just verbalize it to everyone, but doesn't take your crew out enough to train. Just know that yes, you're getting it right from this perspective of paper, but they're 75% of what they're going to get from you, they're going to get from the things that you do and from the things that you don't do. So when you don't train them, they see that from you, and that also affects your reputation. But when if you are involved in training, if you're going to fire conferences and stuff, they see that. You don't have to even tell them, hey, I'm going to fire conferences, I'm doing that. You don't have to have the conversation, because they see it, they experience it. And to me, that's one of the best ways to not only to affect your boundaries, but leading by example. From the front, leading by example. If they're washing trucks, you're washing trucks. If they're washing dishes, you're washing dishes. If there's pre-plans that need to be done, I'm sorry, they need to be done. Let's go do them. The attitude that you have doing them is what's going to paint what those tasks are like. If you hate them and you tell them these things suck, this is bullshit, like I hate doing hydrants, guess what? They're going to hate it too, because my officer hates it.
You'll see certain officers, they'll mop, they'll take part in evening cleanup, and other people, let me take that from you, and the person, whoever it may be, the company officer, even a battalion chief, no, I made this mess, I ate with you guys, I am not above you to where I can't help out, pitch in, and help clean up. And I think that people appreciate that, where you're not acting like that you're so superior that you can't at times help with some dishes, help mop, can't,
Yeah.
participate with whatever your crew may be doing, getting out, washing trucks. Because some of the best conversations I've had in the morning are when you're outside washing trucks and you're talking about.
That's where some of the comedy is too.
Yeah, yeah.
Heck yeah.
So I think just getting out and doing something with your crew.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Daly, he would get out and said they're very regimented. Would come in and they do their workout or they do their training or vice versa, but they have their plan every day. But they are one, if not like the tightest knit crew that I have worked with.
Right.
They are going and doing things on their off days together. They're having family barbecues together.
Yeah.
But there's also those boundaries that are implicit. They just know, okay, this is the boundary. I don't, I'm not trying to push that boundary whatsoever.
They do need to be said.
Yes.
I mean, and you can say those things without hitting them over the head with it, and you can have a boundary conversation.
Yes.
But along those lines, saying is important. But because most communication is nonverbal, it's extremely more important that you do everything that's on that list
Yes.
as well. If not, the list should be twice as long for us. These things, plus the things that you are responsible for, based upon your job. These things, plus gluing everyone together. Plus being as far as I'm concerned, the officer of the station. You should be the most motivated person because you are the example. There are going to be a version of you. And if you are not being the best version of you, they are going to be whatever version you give them.
Yep.
So bring it every day. You show up to the station, bring it. And don't bring negativity to the station. We all have, some type of dynamic at our house, right? And the spectrum is enormous. But if you bring that to the station and it's on the same, if you bring your station life home, you will color one or the other with the other. Mm-hmm. So this job is hard enough. It's hard enough. When you get to work, be positive. Start the day off on a good note, and they will too. They will too. But if you come in and you throw your shit on the ground and you start by, if the day starts with a complaint, you're going to get 50 more where that came from because you've opened the door for everyone else's complaints.
Yeah.
You've made it okay. And
yeah, I think one of the best traits of a good leader is the positive attitude. I think that's what you see in all good leaders is their attitude. And, you could be, I don't know if this is a good example, but you can be not such a good paramedic, but when you go to somebody's house, if you're nice to them, that's what they remember.
oh yeah,
They remember the way you treat them.
that's how I do paramedicine.
Yeah.
I do paramedicine with a smile, and they think
Yeah.
they think that you know everything.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right.
Yeah, so I think you treat your guys good. Maybe they'll remember that over everything, and then if that's what they remember, then when they become leaders, they're going to treat their people well. So
That's your reputation.
Yeah.
You have a reputation for making crew members that everyone wants to have on their crew. And if that's to me that's free. That's free. You don't even need training to be positive, right? I guess
Right.
there might be a few people that need to be trained on how to be positive. But, consistency is another one. Be consistent in who your people see, right? And we have examples of that from one side and from the other, right? We have inconsistent people, and we have very consistent people. Who do you want to work for?
Consistent.
Yeah, oh heck yeah. And I've said this in the past that you could have somebody who's the worst, you can have somebody who's an asshole all the time, right? That's their only mode is that who's in a leadership position, and you can have somebody that's an asshole one day, but then they're their best friend next day, and but you never know when one of them is going to show up. I guarantee you, the guy who's always an asshole gets more done, because you know what you're getting when you walk through the door, and I can form my conversation, whatever however I have to involve myself with them. I know what I'm going to get, so I've already rehearsed this. I'm going to say this, they're going to give me whatever snide remark or whatever is, and then we're going to get the job done. But when you walk through the door and you expect the nice guy, and then the asshole hits you in the face, or vice versa, odds are you're just like, for me, I won't even deal with you. I'm going to go around you.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to be that guy. I wouldn't want to be the leader that no one can trust, because I can't keep my emotions under control. Right? I don't know.
I think that your people have to know that you'll take care of them, that you're consistent, but you're gonna fight for them,
Right?
And that you're ultimately there for them, to make sure that they are gonna succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like you said, you're out front, you're leading by example, you're letting your people know what you want, and then also you're valuing their time.
Yeah.
I will tell you that I have made the mistake as a new lieutenant. You're coming in, and you're coming in way too hard, way too fast, and you have all these great ideas. You're super motivated, and you want to train like 8 to 10 hours a day. And you just want to train. You know,
I'm guilty of that once in a
Yes,
while.
but you have to realize, and I have realized that now, and it's just through mistakes and having beers at conferences with other people or with other leaders within our departments. Like, you have to lower your expectations to where we're going to do some organized training today, but you also have to value your people's time. Mm-hmm. And I had this chief tell me from another department, I think it was Walt Lewis in Orlando, he's a battalion chief down there. He said, don't screw with your people's meal time during their lunchtime. People value their lunchtime. Mm-hmm. Don't screw with their workout time. Like, value their time. Ultimately, we're here to come in. We're making sure that our equipment is up to speed. We're doing training. We have things that we need to do throughout the day. Mm-hmm. But then, and something that I have learned just through mistakes, is giving people their time. Because you guys come in the morning, you write out your routine. Guys, you guys give me 100%. We're gonna do some organized training. Maybe we have some hydrants, some things we got to do. But then after that, the day is yours.
Right.
And I think it's a give and take.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Jerry?
I do. No, I think you're right. You could get carried away with wanting to accomplish so much in the day, and next thing you know, it's 3:00 and no one's ate lunch, but everybody's involved, so it's like,
I am guilty of that.
Yeah, you're like, dang, I should have paid more attention to that. Now everybody's hungry. We still got to go get dinner. Like,
Right.
I can totally see it, and I'm guilty of it as well.
Yeah.
So,
That was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I
was
think
huge.
just taking care of your people.
Because they're people, right?
Yeah.
They're not just the collection of of doers at the station. Yeah, you're 100% right. And also, I'll go down that road with you, is if in doing that, there's a good chance that you will establish a routine at the station. And I didn't dive into it with them, but I worked the first shift that Rescue 20 was on board, and I sat in the bay at City Fire, and the morning they did training, and then there was a certain time where everyone left, and so Chief Bassetti, it was just me and Chief Bassetti, and I was like, everyone abandoned ship. He's like, no, this is the time where they relax. Every day it's this time. And it was like, I was impressed that they actually have something. They build that into their day, a time to decompress. and whatever they choose to do, that this is their time, and it's to lend to what you said. Yeah, it's respecting, giving that you at least have something built into the day, so that you're not just running over them all day. Because I think I honestly did that last shift, and probably the last 4 shifts I've done this to them. Like, we didn't, they were able to watch like a UFC fight, but the TV was turned on 2 times in like I think 6 or 7 shifts now, and it doesn't go on until like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm the cause of some of that, because we're do.
Yeah.
We have so much stuff to get done, and maybe I needed to hear that as well. It's like, like the guys haven't. I've noticed that over the last several shifts, they were only getting their workouts in like sparsely, right? So I think I needed to hear that as well.
And that's what, like, working with Daily, they would, like, they had that built into their routine. They would do their training. Hey, okay, guys, we're already sweaty. Circle of death time. I joke with that because it's not always, but those guys' workouts there were like on another level. And
Right.
again, I was just the old man trying to keep up and not die.
Yeah, that's
But
where I'm at
but
right
I loved working with that crew. They were great.
Yeah.
But they were very regimented. It was
Yeah.
we're training. Now we're all going to exercise as a crew together. Now we're going to go inside and we're going to eat
Yeah.
like lunch together. And then hey, in the afternoon we're all going to go chill out together.
Right.
Yeah.
And then talked about. I do think that your people need a rest day. I'm a big advocate of Sundays being a down day. Come in now, and just Sunday, you just come in. I remember when we were at 14, that would be when Herring would go and pick greens from his garden. We would do a huge barbecue.
Right, we'd
I will
fry
tell you,
fish and stuff, yeah.
And in the West Battalion, we typically do like a family weekend day, to where like family is, say, other station. We'll call it a family day. Sometimes people would bring their families in,
Right.
but you'll have another station. You come in and eat dinner together. So it might be 2 and 3, 17 and 19, and then everybody is over there playing pickleball, and it's just good for camaraderie.
Yeah.
Now, if you do have to have like a training day on a Sunday, I will typically let people know like 2 weeks in advance. Like,
Right.
hey guys, just letting you know, FCTC is on the schedule 2 Sundays from now. Like, we're going to bring our lunch out there. People appreciate that if they kind of understand it's
Right.
coming a little bit. Would you?
No, I do. And you guys have both mentioned a couple of good things, but I did have a question I wanted to pose to you guys
Send it.
as more seasoned officers. As an officer and a leader of a station, what are some small little nuggets that you guys could talk about that are kind of like the low-hanging fruit? How do you at your station lead your people in a way, or what are some things that you guys do at your station, like the family day? That's a great idea to set you apart from other stations. Like, do you have anything?
I would like the crew camaraderie is huge.
Okay.
And I remember even when we were at 5 together, when I first got there, Jerry would put out on group text, "Hey, let's go have a family beach day." I would say this is just stuff that I've picked up from like guys from other departments. They would say that the relationships that you're developing, a lot of that is done to where you're going and doing things together as a crew off duty.
Right.
Because people can kind of let their hair out, let their hair down a little bit, and you can relax. Maybe you go and have a Topgolf day.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay.
Where you have a barbecue together, and hey, you know what? I want to meet your I want to meet your wife and kids.
Be personal.
Yeah.
personal.
You're
Right.
understanding that they're not just a machine that is giving you like something at work, but they're also like a person that you care about their family. And I think that if people know, at least in my opinion, that you value them as a person, that you value their input,
Right.
then they will tend to like give you the world,
True.
like 100%. At least that has been my take on leadership.
I'm glad that was the first thing that was brought up when you posed that question, was and it wasn't even what was on my mind, and I completely appreciate that you said that, because I think that's one of the things that I don't want to say that we haven't been getting right, but we need more of, right? We definitely need more of that, because you see that here and there, like especially because everyone's connected to Instagram and Facebook and all these things, and you see, and I get attacked by FOMO all the time, and I see, crews, they're wakeboarding together, or they're going to the beach, they're hunting, they're fishing, and you're absolutely right. The more that we, as the officers, make that okay and kind of lead our people in that direction, you're creating layers of the future on top with the future leaders that you're creating. Like they won't, by you making it okay, it's now okay for them to do it when they're in your position.
Yeah.
And 100%.
And I think the boundaries that, that was the premise of this podcast, is by having clear expectations that the boundaries are naturally adhered to. It's like, hey, we can still go and do things together as a crew, but then they ultimately know where that line is at.
Yeah.
But I think, that's one of the things of like hanging fruit. The other one is, obviously talking to them, asking their opinion on things, and then ultimately saying, hey, to where you're coming in and you're a little bit more humble, to where, I'm new to this zone. What could be some things that I could learn about the zone? What nuggets could you give me about, let's say, just for example, Zone 15? What are some like buildings that could really trip us up?
Yep.
That type of thing, and just listening to your people a little bit,
Right.
and like valuing the information, valuing their time.
Yeah.
But then ultimately, just being consistent and having a plan. And talking about the plan, like in the morning, after we get the trucks checked off, everybody have a cup of coffee or breakfast and say, this is the plan for the day. What does everybody think about this?
Okay.
I would say you had hit one of the things that I would say is probably one of the staples that I try to do, is to be seen and not heard, right? And to me, the line officer should, I don't have to insert my opinion in every conversation. I'm going to be choosy on the thing, on how I hand that out, because it's your reputation doesn't need to be, and my reputation doesn't need to be, that I have to have an effect on everything around me. It's okay to be silent, and especially I'll do this as an officer on the engine. And I try to do this with the officer on the rescue, is when we go on medical calls, I try not to say anything. Now, things come out of my mouth, and I'm just as guilty of that, but I try to be cognizant of not stepping on people's toes and being in the example for them to follow, not necessarily verbally, but when my people are working, I'm working. And I tell them that don't go out there and wash the trucks without telling me and let me sit in here and do this. I want to know. Don't go outside and throw ladders, and then don't let me sit inside and hear you guys outside throwing ladders, because I want to come out and participate too.
Yeah.
But if I can help it, I'll go out there and just do it, and not to be any kind of negative reflection, but like those are the things that I want to do, right? I like training. I like being active. I like being a part of everything.
Yeah.
And being the example, being seen, not heard. I try to and I tell I'm a part of some of the new hire classes just through the engine operations. One of the things I try to make a point to verbalize to them is, be a sponge, not a faucet, right? As a sponge, you should be absorbing everything and putting out nothing until you're so full it just runs out of you. But if you're a faucet and all you're doing is spitting out, you can't absorb crap. Your people should see you working, They should see you participating in everything. And just like Chris said, be the one to make it okay to get your families involved. Be humble, right? And I don't always get all that stuff right, but
Yeah.
I've been the guy who's walked all over the other lieutenants in the past. I used to do that as an engineer, and I look back and I'm almost ashamed of myself at some of the ways that I was in the past, because it was my station. Don't come in here and change things, because this is my house. I do things a certain way, and I've had to learn to step back, and those words don't need to come out of my mouth anymore,
Right.
because I just just do.
I mean,
And
I was going to say, Jerry, you had posed this question earlier to us about low-hanging fruit, and I would be curious your perspective, because though you might be a new lieutenant in our department, you were a lieutenant with another department
Yeah.
for a number of years. So
You're
you
probably
have
more seasoned,
yeah,
you're
so
more
you
seasoned
have
than I am.
and you have a wealth of knowledge
Right.
with this. So what would be your strategy, low-hanging fruit? You're coming in
Yeah.
to be able to get your people on
Drop
board.
us a nugget, Jerry.
Oh
Come on.
boy, I have some ideas, but so one of the things that Captain Stringer mentioned was getting their families involved. I think that's one of the things that my old department did really well, was we had the ability to get our families involved, and we would routinely have family day at the station, and everybody's kids would come, and it was like one of the best times. And I look forward to, when I do get my own station, is to try to start to get that going. I know it's harder with such a big department, but it's not impossible. So I think that's huge, because this is a huge part of our life, what we do here, and our families need to be part of that in some way, because the kids can't. I feel like our kids can't always just see us going to work. Like, they have to, I think, buy in on what our work is, and kind of how that, how our lives are, how this job is kind of like a huge part of our life. So that's one way. And then another thing that I want to do, and I kind of tried this at Station 5 at the engineer level, but I wasn't there long enough to really kind of let it kind of evolve. But as an officer, I want to get everybody to send me names of their wives, names of their kids, and when their birthdays and anniversaries are. And I want to get into the habit of sending them, like, when it's their kid's birthday, I want to mail them a card from the station telling them happy birthday. Like, hey, the guys at station whatever want to wish you a happy birthday.
I was hoping you were going to bring this up. You told me this.
Yeah,
long
I had
time
mentioned
ago.
it to a couple
Great
of
idea.
I was hoping you were going to bring this up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
this is one of the best things I've heard in a long time.
I think that would give people the feeling of being valued, and knowing that their families and the sacrifices that our families are giving to this job are equally as valued.
Dude, that's a great idea.
You know their wife's name, their kid's
yeah.
name.
Yeah. That's
So, like,
huge.
when you and
Yeah.
your wife are celebrating an anniversary, you guys get a card from the station. Maybe it's something generic with, like, a picture of the truck on it, And then there was one more. Oh, this was another thing that we did at our old department, which I think is something that we could simply do here, is we would go on a call in the town of Orange Park. It was a small area, but you get to, you run on the same people quite a bit. But, like, if you go to somebody who maybe suffered a death, like a cardiac arrest that you didn't get back, when we got back to the station, we had like sympathy cards that everybody would sign. I'm sorry for your loss, and then we would mail it to the people's house, or the next shift go hand deliver it to them. Hey, the guys at Station 11 want to let you know that your family's in our thoughts and prayers. We're sorry for your loss. Or when we had another one that was a get well soon, like if it was a legitimate call where somebody was really sick or somebody
Right.
got injured, it would be a get well soon type of thing from the guys at the station.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I think in your first due area, that would go a long way to the citizens that we serve. And when it comes time to them speaking for us in a commission meeting, they're like, man, those guys at Station 14, my grandma was sick and they brought a card, or they delivered flowers, or something like that.
Right.
But I think those are small things that we can implement that would probably carry a lot of weight, as far as your guys feeling valued.
Yeah.
So those are just some things that I want to try to do when I do get my own station.
Those are huge.
Yes,
I'm glad that
absolutely.
you brought that up,
Yeah.
because I'm guilty. You and I had talked about that before, and I am kind of ashamed to say that I've considered doing it, and just it ended up on the back burner.
Sure.
But I think this is happening now, and I'm going to take your advice.
That's good.
And I'm going to do that, or at least whatever version that I can.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that I have a conversation with my other two officers and kind of stress to them and see if and just I don't want to say do it whether they like it or not, because I guarantee you everyone kind of wants to do this, and just as you said it, it's like, holy cow, that's a great idea. It seems so obvious, but because
Yeah.
there's so many layers to this onion that we're in. That's one of the empathetic part of it gets kind of like, we're just here to do it.
Yeah.
We're not here to feel it. But
And I think it could be one of
Yeah.
those things where, maybe you invest $50 and you buy a stack of cards, and they're at the station, say, hey, here's a thing that I'm going to do, and there's cards here.
Yeah.
If you guys choose to do it when you run on calls, that's up to you, but this is what I'm going to do, and here's what the cards are if you decide you want to do it.
I guarantee you they will be handing them things. Now the guys are gonna write stuff in them, and you're gonna get one in the shower or something like that. They're
Maybe,
gonna flip it under
yeah.
the bathroom door with stuff like
Yeah.
that.
That's what makes it fun.
But
you
that's
know?
what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're totally gonna do this. You
Yeah.
can hold me accountable, and we're totally gonna do this. Gentlemen, this was awesome.
Yeah, this is good. I
Well,
appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
too.
Well, we'll do this again, and till next time. This is, the three of us signing off.
That's it. Yeah. There we go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. See you later.
See ya.